The Business is sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Hello, I'm Clare McAnulty and welcome to The Business, the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. Tonight we're going to be looking at the business of music. The online world and social media has created a new environment for businesses to thrive, but possibly the biggest winner online is music. With YouTube, SoundCloud and Vevo, do today's artists even need record companies? And what does all this online musical democracy mean for musicians? Is it now as important to be business savvy as well as creative? We talked to local indie pop duo Delora, both still only 18 but with musical talent and business nous. How do they go about promoting themselves, and what income streams are now available to artists in order to survive without a record company's help? We also talked to Kirsta Johnston, another talented local musician who combines teaching with performance. How did she move from being a music teacher to running her own business and performing with her band? In the studio helping us through is Martin Lumsden. Martin runs The Cream Room, a sound studio in Ware in Hertfordshire. He's witnessed how the sound industry has changed, and his studio provides facilities for experienced musicians and also for those just starting out. With me is my fellow presenter, Vicky Scott. So, Vicky, I've actually not seen you for a while because of holidays and such like. So how have you been, and how has your work been?
Well, I've been absolutely fantastic and really enjoying the summer. And the thing that I've been trying to do this summer, and I'm sure a lot of small business owners will feel very, very familiar with this problem, I've been trying to get a work-life balance that's a bit better so that I can really enjoy the summer a bit better. And so far, it is going to plan. I think sometimes it's really dangerous when you work for yourself, that you sort of very easily fit into a sort of 24/7 and you just seem to be working all the time. You seem to say yes to every job that comes along because you're not quite sure what's around the corner. And it takes, well, certainly it's taken me 8 years of running my own business to start saying no. And I've really mastered that this summer. You know, I'm saying no to clients. I'm walking away from business if, you know, they don't keep their side of the bargain and all of that sort of stuff. And it sort of feels as though I've come of age. I'm feeling sort of terribly grown up. You know, having said that, of course, I can't sort of seem to stop my brain working when I'm supposed to be relaxing. So it'll be no surprise that whilst I was reading the paper over the weekend and I was thinking about the show tonight, that I saw two lovely stories that I'd just like to raise that were not only interesting to me, but they also fitted in with the music of business, or the business of music, as I should say. And the first was a note in the business pages of the Sunday Times saying that BMG, which is the Bertelsmann Music Group, who, as I was saying to Laura, I worked with for a while, a little earlier in my career, they've just paid 10 million quid for the rights to Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves. Now, the song actually only got to number 8 in the charts, but it's been so popular with broadcast media and advertisers and film, etc., that its value is enormous, clearly. And, you know, 10 million quid is quite a large sum of money. But the really fun bit about this story was that it was written by a girl called Kimberly Rue, who's the band's guitarist, who at the time of writing was a dishwasher on a US Army base in the UK. So I love that as a success story. And on my second story, which is much, much shorter and sweeter, but it's almost exactly the opposite. I think, you know, a lot of people think that massive success stories are 10 a penny in the music industry, and I'm sure Martin's got something to say about that later. But it was really satisfying to hear Ronnie Wood say that he's talking at Cheltenham Literary Festival in a few weeks' time, and his main aim is to confound the myths surrounding himself and the Rolling Stones. And, you know, I was expecting him to go on to say that he's going to be denying the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll. But he's not denying any of that at all. He's just talking about having found a lost diary of his start in the music business. And it reminded him of how very hard he'd had to work as he tried to make it in the music business. And I sort of thought it was so refreshing to hear that. Someone sort of levelling the playing field. You know, they're massive, obviously, and have been massive for a very long time. But just like everybody else, they had a really, really hard, difficult climb at the start. And I sort of thought it was quite a good thing to bring into today's
Absolutely. And I mean,
show.
because they've been successful, then everyone assumes that it was simple, but then they forget about all the other bands that worked hard and didn't get anywhere. So,
and there's loads and loads and loads and loads of those. But fortunately, there are more people who, loads of people who've made it good too. So those are my sort of two stories relating to the business of music.
Okay, very well chosen there. Well, my story this week concerns reviews. It seems whether we buy a product, eat at a restaurant or use a service, everybody's falling over themselves to get us to leave a review. We've got TripAdvisor, Yelp and Amazon, and they come immediately to mind as websites whose reviews really matter to businesses big and small. But it would seem that no business wants a negative review. However, a recent survey by the ratings and review service provider Review suggests that a negative review may not be at all bad, and in fact may work in the business's favour. And why is this? Because as part of their survey, they found that 68% of people trust reviews more when they see both good and bad reviews. And I think that is absolutely true. Where there are no bad reviews at all, 95% of consumers suspect censorship or faked reviews. But what do you do if you receive a review that seems a bit unfair? So I've noted down a few things. First thing to do, monitor your networks. So keep yourself up to date on reviews as they come in and act on them. 2, decide whether to reply publicly or privately. Sometimes publicly is good because it can show people that you're actually bothered and that you're concerned about your customers. Third one is take action, so respond quickly and apologise if necessary. And finally, follow up. So contact the customer again to check they're happy with the action they've taken. I mean, what do you think about reviews, Vicky? Do you take them seriously in some of these places?
Well, personally, I think that the word of the customer now is so much bigger than it ever used to be. So it's an essential part of running a business these days. You have got to manage reviews, and it's like a sort of open door for PR, really. And I think there are. Talked about success stories, but there are some fantastic stories, big PR stories where they've started out as really, really bad news, and because the company has behaved properly, because they've behaved quickly, and because they've behaved in a way that really addresses the problem to the customer, they've come out smelling of roses, and they've come out as bigger brands and better brands and more successful brands as a result of dealing with bad PR. And that doesn't matter whether, it's bad PR that's hit the front page of the Time or it's a bad review on TripAdvisor. Address it, as you said in your key points, address it. If you can address it publicly, then you can get stuff done. And the power is with the consumer these days, and mess them around at your peril. Don't look after them at your peril, because it doesn't matter how big you are, you can come across.
And sometimes one bad review, depending on what it says, can have quite a devastating effect. So you do have to be very, very concerned about all of your customers. Well, you're listening to The Business with me, Clare McAnulty and Vicky Scott. If you want to get in touch, here are some of the ways. Give us a call on our studio number, which is 01727 939 926. Tweet us at RVTheBusiness or email us thebusiness@radioverulam.com. The other thing you could try is have a look at our YouTube channel. If you've missed any of our previous programmes, just have a look there. Go on to youtube.com/RVTheBusiness. We'll be back after this short break.
In Radlett, St Albans and London Coney, 92.6 FM Radio Verulam.
Radio Verulam Community Partners. Trestle Art Space is a community art space and registered charity situated in Russet Drive in Highfield Park, home to Trestle Theatre Company and world-renowned Trestle Masks. We offer a wide range of art-based activities as well as professional theatre shows, monthly live music showcases with licensed bar and a gallery cafe with exhibitions from local artists. Trestle's 100-year-old chapel is also available to hire for weddings, private parties and business meetings. To find out more, please visit our website trestle.org.uk and please support us in bringing affordable art to our community. For more information on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
Join me, Tatiana Colombo, on the Radio Verulam sofa for the Sunday supplement. Every week from 10 to midday, we'll have entertainment news, desert island dish, television highlights, and the sound of Sunday. That's the Sunday supplement with me, Tatiana Colombo, from 10 a.m. to midday on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
Call us on 01727 839 926.
Welcome back to The Business on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM and online at radioverulam.com. Tonight the theme is the business of music. From around the year 2000 onwards, the introduction of the MP3 music file has enabled music to be copied and passed around the internet with ease. Before that, we had CDs, I do remember those, and the balance of power was very much in favour of the record companies. Now it seems with easy access to recording, YouTube and social media, musicians are able to get their music heard, build up fan bases and get paid without the need to involve a record company. But in this new world, the creative musician, as well as being talented, has to be business savvy. So tonight we're going to explore the different ways musicians and artists in general can build their own business while keeping creative control. And at this point, I'm going to hand you over to Vicky to introduce our studio guest.
Well, I'd like to welcome Martin Lumsden. Welcome, Martin.
Hello.
Martin runs the Cream Room sound recording studio and also advises musicians on the best ways of promoting themselves once the music recordings are done. It all sounds very, very interesting, Martin. Now, the first question I've got to ask is, why is it called the Cream Room?
It's called the Cream Room because the studio is on a farm in a village called Dane End. And the building itself, before we converted it to a studio, was actually where we believe was where they milked the cows when the farm was a dairy farm.
Oh, it's a fab story.
So the idea was, the Cream Room, what a great name. I think that the fact that cream has connotations with music as well through the connections with Eric Clapton's band, and also Cream was a huge dance movement label. Coming out of Manchester, I think, originally. So there's nice connections through Cream as well. So
sounds
the Cream Room.
Absolutely perfect. And how did you get into music and building a recording studio in the first place?
Well, I didn't build the studio there. I took over the business that had been there as the previous owner had moved on. I had the opportunity to come and take over that business or establish a new business in the premises. That wasn't my history. I had been in financial services for
a
very long time up to that point, and I just got to the point of feeling this is not what I want to do with my life.
I can understand that bit, but that's a big leap, isn't it? So you must have had some experience in music.
Yeah, music's always been a big passion for me, and I'd always had an interest. I mean, I kind of say the recording element of it was I was one of those guys who sat in front of my tape machine making sure that as much as possible I got the beginnings and ends of songs and cut off the DJ and had the mixtapes so that every song finished at the right place, ended at the right place, and there was no gaps at the end.
That sounds a fraction geeky.
It was, I think it is quite geeky. Yeah.
We sort of expect music people to be all sort of uber cool and completely trendy, but there's a huge amount. There's a huge amount of technical know-how and knowledge that needs to be thrown into this mix.
Yeah, definitely. I love speaking to my colleagues at the studio because they're very proficient musically, but particularly the producers and engineers are very proficient technically as well. And they have a wonderful geekiness about them, which is great.
And what sort of bands and individuals record at the Cream Room?
Largely, it's starting out musicians. Although it crosses, we get the kind of last hurrah type musicians as well, who feel like they've never had the opportunity to have themselves recorded. Maybe they've been in a band for years and just want something to hold on to. But largely, it's start-up musicians who are looking for their first kind of foot on the ladder. And need something to be able to represent themselves.
And how? So do they actually sort of pay by the hour, or do they pay by the number of staff that they need to support them? How does it work for a band that's looking to record?
Our rates at the studio, the simple answer is it's by the hour, but typically we package things up for bands because they'll tend to want to work by in numbers of days, so either a whole day or a couple of days, and those are sort of packaged up depending on what they want. from a support structure, because they may want to bring in their own team of people, although that's quite rare. But if they, depending on whether they just want a recording or they want some production support, then there are different levels in terms of what we would charge. All very reasonable, though.
So, of course. And what do they get at the end of that? What do they sort of walk out with?
The idea from our point of view is that they walk out the door with something they can really be proud of sharing. The last thing we would want is that they go away and listen back to something and go, that's a bit disappointing. So we really want to make sure that we deliver something they can be excited about. Sometimes that means managing their expectations so that they're not trying to do too much in a short period of time, which is fairly understandable. If you've only got a limited amount of time and money, you kind of want to do as much as you can with it. So we're trying to work with the artists to make sure that getting the best version of a track is better than getting an average version of several tracks. Yeah, because it'll work better for you.
Makes an awful lot of sense. And do you find that there are some bands that are just naturally better at promoting themselves? That you can see some bands that are just going to make it because of the nature of the beasts. I don't know about being able to. If I knew, I could see the bands that were going to make it. Yes, we'd still be sitting here now, or I'd be having dinner with Simon Cowell, I think. No, it's very hard, but you can see the ones that have got their attitude is about making the effort rather than having it handed to them on a plate. And there are those that, if you're expecting to be discovered, you're going to have a very long wait. But if you're prepared to knock on a few doors, make a few phone calls and speak to a few people, then you really have a great chance. Back to the Ronnie Wood comment, isn't it? That
Absolutely.
Actually, it doesn't matter how good you are or how brilliant you end up, you have to just really work hard, like the rest of us.
That's right.
Sadly. And what sort of things are you seeing the bands do these days, and how's that different from how it used to be maybe 5-10 years ago?
Well, I think as we kind of indicated earlier on, if I go back to when I was originally in a band, it was scraping some money together to get into a studio, which would then be recorded onto tape, and I am giving away my age here, but we'd record onto tape, and then those would be transmitted typically onto a cassette, so we could distribute by cassette, and we would make those recordings ourselves from a hard disk. Nowadays, things are recorded onto computer, they're easily duplicated, it's quite easy to copy them onto CD, or particularly these days, match it onto the internet. And once it's on the internet, it can go global. You're worldwide access to whoever you want to talk to. So if you have someone who likes your music at the other side of the world, there's nothing that stops them from being able to access it and being a fan of yours.
That's the essence, isn't it? It's now about numbers of fans, because that's how ultimately you're going to make your money, because you're not going to be able to sell your tape for £5 anymore.
It's very
so it's about the numbers of fans. And how do people get their music sort of listened to? I mean, literally, is it just sticking it on YouTube like we do our show and hoping that people will find it?
Well, yeah, there is, and I think that comes back to yes, it's very easy to get it on there, but it's that hoping thing again. If you're hoping for people to find it, then that's you're leaving it up too much to the luck of the gods, or whatever the right phrase is. But if you're prepared to do a little bit of marketing to make sure that you get yourself heard, and again focus on who you want to hear it, and say, how do I get them to hear what I'm saying, then you've got a good chance.
And are live gigs still the thing as well?
Very much so.
Pubs and clubs and bars and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, I think so. It's been a challenge over several years because of the way the legal aspects of performance have been, the licensing that pubs and clubs have had to go through. That's developed over time in terms of, can we do a duo, can we put on a band, how much is it going to cost us, all that from the licensee's point of view, from the pub. That's been quite difficult for them. Right. But that seems to have loosened a little bit, so it is easier for bands to get gigs now. And live music seems to be very popular, it remains very popular, and certainly at the high end it's a big deal for bands now to do live. That's where, for the likes of the Coldplays and U2s and the Rolling Stones, that's where a lot of their money comes from, not from record sales but from live tours.
So what we're going to look at tonight is we're going to take a couple of local bands, and we are going to find out their secrets, how they manage to promote themselves. So a little bit, some of the things that Martin's already mentioned there. So we're going to have a listen now to how one local musician manages her business. Kirsta Johnston, she's a flautist, a vocalist and a teacher. She and her band perform in a mixture of styles from jazz to folk. Her Her training as a music teacher helped her provide a steady income when she made the jump from teacher to performer. She now runs her own business. I thought I would start the clip with a little bit of Kirsta singing, and you can also hear her playing the flute.
You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again.
I began my first formal education in music at Aberdeen Northern College of Music. I graduated with a Bachelor of Education Music degree honours. So that was way back in 1995, I believe, yes.
At that time, was there any emphasis put on the business side of music?
Well, we were being trained as teachers, so the idea that we were going to go out there and that was our profession, that was our job. So we were all going to come out as registered teacher of music, primary and secondary in Scotland. So we didn't have talks on how we would actually manage that, but most of the training was, you know, in the classroom and just developing your own musical skills, really.
So at that point then, the idea was that you were going to teach music. Was there any point at which you thought you would want to perform as well? Was that part of the same thing?
All of the students were at some very high stages in their musical practice. So a lot of us, even at 20, were playing in orchestras. We were being asked to play for private parties. So we were already being introduced to that side of the business from quite early on. I mean, I remember playing at a friend's wedding and was about 15 or something. And given a small donation at the time.
So you had yourself a nice secure job teaching at schools. How did you come out of that, Kirsta, into working for yourself?
I came right out of schools and started my own business, just doing one-to-one tuition and building my clients in and around the area. I got some business cards and I didn't have anything like a website or all these things that I do have now. Again, it was putting myself... I did have my name up on a music teacher site. I got quite a lot of calls from there.
And let's talk about it now then. So now you have a website, and how else do you get work, Kirsta? What do you use now mainly to get work?
We have the Facebook event page, and I'm on Twitter. I can't say that I use that extensively, but you know, some people have used Twitter to promote going to some of my events, my public events, going to pubs and restaurants and clubs and that kind of thing. I'm on Lemon Rock mostly for my gigs and events, so a lot of people can find me on there. I also have leaflets, flyers, I do some networking.
Would you say now that the online and social media is an important part of your business now, as well as being able to sing and to teach and to play?
Oh, I think it's as equally as important. I never really saw myself as a businesswoman to start with, but then you draw out skills that you possibly didn't think you had, because it's quite scary to imagine yourself. You are responsible for your income, solely responsible, and that's a lot for some people to imagine. So you have to be able to take your business realistically and think, well, this has got to earn me my living.
And if you were advising someone, so let's say someone has just finished a course, like the course that you finished up in Aberdeen, what would you advise them to do first? Would it be a website? What would be your best advice to them?
I wouldn't say a website right away. I think the first thing is to get yourself your branding sorted. Really, really determine, write down really what you're trying to sell, making that very, very clear before you set out what your business is going to be all about. Because I found at the start that people were a little confused. I was saying, play the flute, you do this, do that. So once you start really sorting that out and having your goals, then get some nice cards, business cards made out, and just get out there and start networking. You would like to build your own reputation, a good reputation, and a sense of likability and reliability, because whatever musician goes out to promote their services, those are the essential things I think that people look for ultimately, as well as being able to sing well.
And that was Kirsta Johnston there with some advice for lots of musicians. Kirsta can be contacted on her website, which is www.kirstajohnston.com. That's spelt KirstaJohnston.com. That's www.kirstajohnston.com. So, Martin, lots of things that Kirsta's doing, and it sounds as though she came through quite a sort of traditional type of route, I could imagine. The thing that she was sort of talking about that she probably wished she'd got right from the word go was her branding. Is that something that you feel is a problem that musicians have in the start of their careers?
Yeah, I think getting a sense of what you're about, I think, that's how I would interpret what Kirsta was saying. I think branding sometimes can get misinterpreted as, well, I've got a logo, or, I know what my name is, or whatever that might be. But I think what's really right is to have a sense of what your purpose is and who it is that you want to speak to. Because it's very easy just to, I think, take a view that, well, my music's great, everyone will love it. And that's not really true. If you can think about the type of people you really want to speak to, who's likely to be your audience, and what it is that you want to say to them. If you know that, you don't have to write it down even, but if you know that that's what you're trying to do, then you have a sense of purpose and a sense of direction that will really put you in good place to move forward.
That, I guess, is also going to help you enormously with every aspect of the channels that you choose to market through, whether it's picking the right pub with the right sorts of audience, or the right sort of backdrop to your Facebook page, or any aspect of promoting through anything on the web. If it looks right and to the audience, then it's more likely to succeed. Now, another thing that she talked about was the responsibility and the income side of the business. How do you get involved at all in helping bands figure out how they might sort of fund themselves, or are most people recognising they've got to do a bit of work on the side at the same time as running a band?
Yeah, it's. I feel like I don't want to say, oh, you have to do a bit of work. Largely because I feel that's kind of the trap I fell into myself as well. Thinking if I was really given the opportunity when I was a bit younger to say, this is allowed. You can, if you want to have a music business career or a music career, it's okay. Don't worry about having to get a proper job. So I'm reluctant to sort of get to say to musicians, you should get a job alongside and concentrate on that. If you feel that you can do this, but you need to live. Don't expect anyone to grant you a living. So as Kirsta, I think, said in there, you've got to think about where's the money going to come from? How do I manage myself as a business? And can I earn the income that I need to support myself?
And do you think the colleges should be helping them a little bit more in that area?
The colleges, I think they are. I think there's a lot of music business courses. There's a lot of talk about marketing in music. So I largely deal with the kind of pop world, if you like, or the rock and pop world, but I know Kirsta's in more classic, and there's a lot of support. I was recently involved in an arts marketing symposium at the Arts Business School, which was very much about marketing yourself, very much talking about areas including opera, arts, classical music, both performing arts and non-performing arts. So there's a lot of support out there, I think. If you look for it, it's there.
Okay, well, we're going to have a break now. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Delora, who Martin knows very well. They're a local indie pop duo. Now, how have they managed without a record company so far? That's the question we're going to be asking them, and hopefully they're going to divulge some of their business techniques just after this short break.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
At Kingston Smith, our ethos is simple. We want our clients to succeed. Welcoming owner-managed businesses and individuals, we pride ourselves on offering the local business community a range of services that best supports their needs for maximum growth. Kingston Smith, helping our clients succeed. Find us on St Peter Street in the heart of St Albans, or for more information, head to kingstonsmith.co.uk.
Radio Verulam Community Partners. St Albans Symphony Orchestra has been giving concerts for over 75 years, delivering top-quality live music in an affordable and an accessible way. They play the greatest classical works as well as popular light music with all the excitement of a full-scale symphony orchestra. They also subsidise every child's ticket. It costs only £1 for a child to attend any of the concerts. To learn more, visit their website, saso.org.uk. For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
Listen online at radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. I'm Clare McAnulty, and I'm here with my fellow presenter Vicky Scott and our studio guest Martin Lumsden of the Cream Room Sound Recording Studio. Our theme tonight is the business of music. For young bands who have grown up with the internet and social media, building up a fan base and getting known is a much easier step than it was a number of years ago. They're still only 18, but local indie pop duo Delora have been playing together for 2 years. While a lot of bands would be chasing a record deal, for the moment, lead singer Lucy Holmes and guitarist and vocalist Lauren Deacon Davis are able to spend time developing and writing their own music. Now, I spoke to them early in the week, but first, let's have a little listen to their single, which is called Sober.
Too much with these eyes. Show me love, show me love, show me love, show me love. I don't spin with the earth, collide into the universe. Show me love, show me love, show me love, show me love. When I'm alone, you know I can't breathe, Stay a bit longer, won't you stay with me, No, I don't wanna play no more games, waste time. So baby, come round, when you come over, we start the night so good. I just get drunk on your love anyway. When you come over, we start the night off so good. I just get drunk on your love anyway.
Can you start by telling us how you came to form the band?
I've known Lucy for a very long time, known each other since school, and we were both very musical kind of people, a bit different, a bit creative. And after a while of doing some music together, we decided, you know what, let's actually launch this as a real project. And that was about 1.5 years ago, and that's what Delora is today.
And Lucy, I wonder if you could tell me, what type of promotion do you have to do to get your music heard by people?
We just basically put our stuff everywhere online. So if someone's only using one platform like SoundCloud, or someone's just using YouTube, we make sure that it's everywhere so that we're reaching all different types of people and all platforms, basically.
And Lauren, can you tell me, are you getting this to the stage now where you need to or want to attract a record company?
Well, we've been doing most of our stuff independently at the moment, and that seems to be working. I think we have a lot more control over what we're doing in the setup we've got. We are developing to add more people to our team and generally get more help involved in what we're doing. We can't say specifically where we're going to go, what's going to happen, because it's so, you never know with the music industry. But our aim is to get more people involved and sort of generally build up our representation and just get ourselves out there.
So Lucy, when it comes to using social media to promote yourselves, do you find that one platform works better for you than another?
Each one has like different qualities. So for example, Twitter can be a lot more interactive and you can reach a lot more people because you can tweet and message whoever you like, whereas Facebook you can only go out to the audience that are already on your page, which is still great because you get to see come up on their newsfeed and stuff like that. So they work for different things, but YouTube's good as well because anyone can watch your video if you want it public, and same with SoundCloud.
So for a new band, what do you think is the most important thing to do first?
I'd say get your music out there online and play gigs and shows and upload it onto the BBC uploader.
But I'd say the main thing you need to do is you need to record it. You need to have good quality recordings because people won't listen to people might listen to bad quality recordings, but honestly, like to a new band, go to a studio and get some good recordings of your songs because the BBC and those radio stations aren't going to play poorly recorded songs. So you need to have good quality songs, and then you need to have something to promote, like go on the radio show, then play awesome gigs and stuff like that, but you need something to sell and promote because merchandise is a really important part of it.
Is it expensive? I mean, could a band that's just starting off afford to go into the studio now? Do you think the prices have come down maybe over the last 5 to 10 years?
I think it really depends on what studio you want to go to or what level you're trying to go in. The prices have definitely come down because studio equipment is a lot more accessible. But for a new band that's starting out, you can go to a slightly smaller studio and get a really good recording, or you can save up a bit more, and depending on what you're trying to achieve. So we saved up quite a bit, and we've been in smaller studios before, but for the new stuff that we're recording, we were like, we want to get the best quality we can, so we did save up to go to a very nice studio. But you don't need to when you're starting out.
But do you think that the fact that you've got the cash together and gone slightly more high end, do you think that's paid dividends for you? Do you think it's been useful?
I think it definitely has. When you listen to it, you can tell that it's slightly different quality, and I think that when professionals are listening to it, they do notice the difference, and so that helps in that way. But we didn't record like that straight away, and also if you're not used to being in the studio, it's a completely different environment. And if you are paying thousands of pounds to go to the studio and you don't know what you're doing, it's literally a waste of money. So I would strongly recommend, if you've not been in the studio before, to go to a smaller studio first.
So earlier you mentioned the BBC uploader, and I know that Delora was recently on BBC Introducing. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, it's a platform designed to help new music. So what you do is if you've got a song that's professionally recorded, you upload it onto the uploader, the BBC uploader, and then it gets sent off to the relevant radio station to your area, and they listen to it, and they're very supportive, and they try help new music because they want new music and they want to be, encouraging musicians. But so we submitted our song off there a while ago, and then we ended up building up a bit of a relationship with them. So now they've helped us, and we've had really lucky opportunities like being BBC Introducing Track of the Week and being on the Mark Forrest show, and generally just a lot of support from the BBC from uploading our songs.
And what has been the result of appearing on BBC Introducing? Have you had approaches from other companies? What way has it worked for you?
We actually got onto their BBC Introducing stage at Rhythms of the World Festival, which is a local festival to us in Hitchin. Mm-hmm. Which was really lovely. It's a huge stage, great lighting. Mm-hmm. We also got onto the Mark Forrest show, which is the biggest local BBC Introducing show because it goes out to all 39 BBC radios locally across the UK. So there were quite big exposure opportunities that were given to us by BBC Introducing.
So obviously there's a lot you can do online, but what about playing a live gig? Would you say that you still prefer playing live?
Yeah,
we love gigging.
Yeah, gigs are lots of fun. I think everyone loves to go see a band live if you like their music. You want to go and meet them, see it live. So I think gigging's a massive part of it.
I think that you can't get the same feeling online that you do when you're actually meeting the people in real life, playing a gig to an audience of people that are there because they want to see you. I think that being on social media is great, and it's an incredibly important part of being in a band, but ultimately playing live is so much fun, and I think it is so important to being a band.
And we'll be hearing a little bit more from Delora a bit later in the programme.
What brilliant girls. I mean, they seem really, really tuned in and alive, and the music's great.
Yeah.
And they're doing loads and loads and loads of different things. Delora mentioned the fact that you can't just rely on one channel anymore, and that sort of goes for all sorts of marketing. But it sounds like it's the same in the music business.
That's right, I think there's so much opportunity. It could maybe be a little bit overwhelming. You think there is all sorts of places: SoundCloud, YouTube, Bandcamp. Then people will talk to you about iTunes and various other places that you can do things. So I think you can choose your resources well. Think about the places where your audience is likely to be wanting to see what you're doing. But all of those are useful tools for you to use as an artist and give you the opportunity to make your music available to people so that they get to know who you are.
Can I just ask you, Martin? I mean, obviously, the Delora started, they were very young, still at school, in fact, 16, I think, when they started. Now, that used to make young musicians quite vulnerable because they were quite young. But do you think it now works in the young musicians' favour because they know how to go, if you like, social media and all this sort of the online promoting?
Yeah, well, I guess without wanting to sound too much like an old fogey, that, young. I think people are a bit more savvy these days, a little bit younger. Everybody's going to make mistakes here and there, and of course there are unscrupulous people who will try to take advantage. And you'll see that online as well. There'll be situations where you might get a company offering, we'll get you a record deal, send us your stuff. All you have to do is write us a check for $50 or that kind of thing. So you have to be quite aware, and you do have to be savvy not to get, make a mistake and get pulled over. Having said that, that's how people learn, is by making mistakes. But the opportunities are definitely there, and young people are more savvy. They know exactly how to use the internet. They know how to connect with people. They know how to use that as a medium. So I think you're only going to see it grow, and you're only going to see it develop in terms of how they communicate with each other. So yeah.
And they also made a good point, which was about doing the sound recording. That although you could pay out to, say, go into Centre of London and get recorded, it is worth going to a local recording studio first, just so that you've got it's quite a strange environment the very first time you go. Would you go along with that? Do you see a lot of new bands coming to you just to get used to the studio and the environment?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt a top-end studio will get you a great result, but you've got to be ready for it, I think. If you go into a studio when you're not ready, and that applies anywhere. I feel very sad. I try to warn them against it, but we will still get bands who will come in and they don't actually have their songs finished and ready to record. They'll still be writing them or thinking about how they're going to perform them. And it's just a waste of their money. We're sitting waiting for them to get ready to record, and they've already paid for the time. It's such a shame. So yeah, you prepare yourself, and I think part of preparing yourself, if you want to spend money, spend it wisely. Speak to a few studios. Think about how you're going to connect with them, whether they can give you what it is that you want. And if you're like, say, Delora, they've done a lot of work to get to the stage where they're ready to say, look, we've got a sound now that's developed enough, we've got a fan base that's big enough, that means that it's worthwhile us spending money on top-end studios, top-end producers. And I say they've done a great job in getting themselves to where they are.
And we talked about live gigs and that sort of role that plays in building fan base. It also sounds like it's what musicians really love to do, to play to a live audience. And is it my imagination, or are there an awful lot more sort of open air events that now happen that make the opportunity to gig a bit easier these days?
I think so. I can't put my finger on exactly when it happened, but there's a point when the kind of Glastonbury being the preserve of a few people who want you to go to a festival once a year, to which you can't go around the corner without falling over a festival these days. I think it's terrific. I think it does. It's because music is very alive, and we all have it in our lives in one form or another. So, and there's all sorts of formats. There's something for everyone in terms of either the music that they present or the environment that they create for niche markets or families. It's a great thing, I think. There's so much liveliness and vibrancy around the music industry, around music at the moment.
Absolutely. And I mean, just a little plug for Radio Verulam here. You know, there's a lot of community radio out there now as well. And certainly we have our own show that promotes local music and what's going on in the local music scene. And I'm absolutely certain that there are other community music stations that are looking at local music as well. So. And that's a great opportunity, isn't it? To actually really sort of showcase what's going on. And it makes, as an oldie myself, it makes me sort of feel as I'm part of a young, vibrant culture that's going on in St Albans, which is quite nice, actually.
And I should also mention that it's actually, if anyone is listening and wants to be featured on Radio Verulam, it's a show that goes out on a Wednesday. So if they have a listen to the Drive Time show with Danny on a Wednesday, you'll hear new bands, and by all means contact him. Just use our email address and you should be able to get hold of them.
I think that's a brilliant opportunity. I wish bands knew more about it, because as the girls from Delora quite early said, there's BBC Introducing, which is a fantastic resource for bands, but there seems to be a step before that's maybe a little bit missing. And that's where local radio really can step up and say, we'll give you a chance to get heard.
Now, and for all those people that have never been to the studio here, you'd be surprised that we can actually get a band in here. But we can, and they do a really, really good job. Now, one of the other things that Delora mentioned before we move on to the final clip was merchandise. Now, what does she mean by that?
It's funny, I know we've got a screen in the studio here. I was kind of flicking on the Delora website a second ago, and it's hats and bags and scarves. No, it's not quite bags and scarves, but it's all sorts. It can
Sounds like Hermes.
Well, yeah, and it can, depending on what it is, but they've got posters and wristbands and hats. They've got a particular demographic, I think, Delora, that would appeal to. That wouldn't be the same for everyone. If I was to really make it simple, I would say, if you're going to play live and you're going to be connecting with your audience, at least have a CD, or maybe, I think Kirsta said as well earlier on, a business card. So you've got something tangible you can give to people, because that's when they're going to connect with you straight away. And as much as you can stand on stage saying, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, it's not very real, and it's not really something that can happen. If you stand on stage and say, I hope you've enjoyed my performance, if you'd like to buy my CD, I have it here for £3, and it's got all your details on it, that's something they're going to take away, listen to, remember, and that will give them some real attachment to you that will hopefully stand you in good stead to develop a relationship with that person.
I think that's absolutely right. And I remember, this is going back, ageing me now again, but I remember being in Covent Garden and hearing this extraordinary noise, wandering over and there being a big crowd around a guy that was singing. And he was absolutely extraordinary, an extraordinary voice. And the guy that I was with and we went up to him and said, have you got any tapes? Because we were in between meetings, we couldn't stop. And he hadn't got anything at all. And about 6 months later, we heard his voice again, and it was actually Jimmy Somerville.
Oh, wow.
And, the rest, as I say, is history. Yeah. But he had nothing. Yes. He was just busking in Covent Garden, probably a little bit the worse for wear. Yeah. And, of course, that extraordinary voice, which then went on to sell loads and loads and loads of records.
Fantastic.
Well, no matter what your skill set and talents are, we all need to make money, unfortunately, and survive and build a business. And for Delora and other young bands starting out, this can be a little bit tricky. So I asked Lucy to tell me how Delora goes about making their income.
We basically are on PRS and PPL websites. We're signed up to them, and they collect royalties from all performances that you do and all radio play. So it's really important as an artist to be signed up to them so that you're maximising your income and you're making sure you're getting paid for your songs being played and for your performances.
I know that PRS is the Performing Rights Society. I'm not quite so sure about what PPL is. Do you want to maybe explain a little bit more about them?
PRS is what you sign up to if you are the songwriter. So you make sure all songwriters are put down on the track. And when you play a festival or a show, the show has to register that you played there and what songs you played, and you get a certain amount of money depending on how big the audience and how, the size of the gig for each song that you played and the time that you played. PPL it's more radio play, but you can get some performance royalties from that, but they collect a lot of radio play, so when your track has been played on BBC or, wherever, the company has to register it, and then you get money from that play.
So would you recommend that a new artist signs up to both PRS and PPL?
Whenever you go into a venue or anything like that, you should see like a red little like sticker on the door, and this is where music is being edited to say PRS. So venue has to be signed up to PRS to play any music. Whenever music is played in the venue, it has to be submitted. So even if you're a tiny artist and you're just starting out, if you're playing your own material at like even just an open mic night, you submit it, or the venue should submit it, but submit it yourself because sometimes they don't. And then you just get a bit of money from it. Yeah.
So let's say you've signed up for PRS and PPL. What other ways are there for independent artists to make money?
You can have all your songs on iTunes so that people can buy your tracks, and also have them, you can sign up like a sync deal, something like that, and get your songs played on adverts, get chunks of money that way. There's all sorts of avenues. You can also have them on streaming websites. You get money through streaming, not as much though.
No. Well, that's on YouTube. You can earn money from that. You can get money from putting your adverts at the beginning, but you have to get to a certain point where you're guaranteed to be getting thousands of views on a video before you can really start earning any money from that, or before the adverts start being put onto your channel.
So obviously you've got your singing, that's one thing, your band, and then you've got this separate, this whole business side of it going. And are the two of you at the moment trying to do the business side yourself? Have you got help to do the business side, and do you think that people need help to do the business side?
We've got a manager and we love the help that we get from him. Some people might not need that, but it does kind of take a weight off your shoulders because you can concentrate on like songwriting rather than the whole thing. You can dip in and out of it, but if someone else is completely in control, knows what's going on all the time, it does take a weight off your shoulder and helps you drive forward because they're working on you when you're doing the songwriting bit, so there's constantly stuff going on.
Do you believe that without having to sign on to a record company that you could still do reasonably well? Do you think you'd be able to do that?
100%, definitely.
And you'd be able to do well financially as well as getting your music heard?
I think as a musician, you have to kind of not go into this thinking you're going to make money. Like, I think you definitely have to have more of a stronger passion that you want to perform than that you want to try and earn money from it, because it's very difficult to actually earn a proper income from it.
I personally go into it thinking about money, so I make sure that we do get paid for what we should be getting paid. So I think you should go into it thinking about money.
You need to go in with a mindset that you're not going to get ripped off, and you need to be able to, actually earn money from it.
I think artists should think more about money, because most people think they shouldn't pay musicians. So definitely go into it thinking about earning money, because then you will. If you don't think that, then you won't. You'll just do whatever gig for no money.
And that was Lucy Holmes and Laura Deacon-Davis talking about how their band Delora makes an income. They really are extraordinary girls, and we wish them every success. They sound as though they've got their heads screwed on right in the right direction. And now, if you want to hear more about Delora and listen to their music, you can contact them on Facebook at facebook.com/wearedelora. On Twitter, they are at wearedelora. Instagram at wearedelora, and also YouTube and Vivo. Just type Delora into the search bar. They really are on every channel that they can think of, aren't they? So Martin, lots of good ideas, about making money. Some not so sort of clear in terms of whether it's their absolute motive in life, but it sounds as though they make a very good duo. Does it help Lucy and Laura that they write their own music, do you think?
Does it help that they write their own music? That's what they want to do. I don't think you have to as a musician. I think that's you don't have to. I think there are plenty of great writers who aren't getting the opportunity to succeed because they feel that they have to perform as well. And maybe don't want to, but they could be writing great stuff. And there's equally many performers who maybe just don't have the material, but if they were able to sing. So I don't think it's necessary to have to do both. It's kind of become common since Bob Dylan, the Beatles, all that kind of stuff. They kind of put it out there and said you have to do that.
So how do writers get together with bands? I mean, how does that relationship work?
I think it's is it accident or looking for it? I mean, we certainly, it's one of the services we offer at the studio is for songwriters, performers to say, look, if you feel that you want to develop that as a skill, or you need assistance in terms of the people to perform what you're doing. So we'll work with either a writer who has a song and needs some musicians to help them to perform it, or if they have songs that just need a little bit of work on them, so say, I think I've got a good song here, but can you help me make it better? Then they're like us, there will be others out there who will help you to get better at what you do.
And when they talked about the necessity or not of a record company, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's rapidly changing. It's really hard to put your finger on right now which way it's going to go, but there's no doubt that it's very different from what it was in the past. The record label was a necessity if you wanted to succeed in the past, and it's probably legitimate to say that if you are an artist the scale of say Beyonce or Justin Timberlake or something like that, the reason that you'll see them appear on chat shows and various other features on TV and so on is because they have the publicity machine behind them, which is coming from the larger labels. Whether it's necessity to have a label as certainly as a starting artist, or even in the long term, I think there's certainly a bigger future for smaller independent labels or artists representing themselves to be very successful without the need for the traditional record label model that we all kind of got used to. I think that's changed massively.
And do we not have an incident quite recently with Apple Music and Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
And she made some statement, didn't she? What was the story on that again?
I think the interesting thing with that is how the power is shifting from the labels to the artists, I feel like, because the Apple Music had launched on the 30th of June, actually, and their initial launch includes a 3-month free trial period, which initially they'd said they wouldn't pay anyone for, including the artists. Taylor Swift took very great umbrance to that and said this isn't right, stood up, wrote a letter to Apple, and within 24 hours Apple had said, actually, no, you're right, we should do something and we will pay the artists after all. The amazing thing to me is that it was Taylor Swift saying that. It wasn't her record label, it wasn't her publicist, it was her who stood up and said no.
I think she said no on Twitter as well, didn't she?
She did, and she's been very vociferous about Spotify as well, and whether the streaming model is right or wrong. And I find it fascinating that it is the artist saying that, not the label, because you don't have to go back too far where you had, Prince was etching slave on his cheek because he felt he had no rights over his own music, and it's changed so quickly over such a short period.
And Martin, just before you go, do you want to just give us your website if people want to get hold of you?
Sure, you can find us very easily at creamroom.co.uk, and we're also on Twitter at creamroom and on Facebook at the facebook.com/the creamroom.
Lovely, thank you very much. Well, lots of good ideas there, not just for musicians, but for all creative people that need to be able to combine a talent with music. I'd like to thank all of our contributors, obviously to Martin here in the studio, and finally to Vicky Scott with me here. Until the next time, have a good week.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants. If there's anything in the show you want to talk to us about, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.